Hi guys, welcome back to Worm's Eye View. I'm going to do my weekly reads. It turns out this is going to be a 2-weekly read because I didn't get to do it last week. So God, noisy people going past my house. I've got my windows wide open, let me show you. Because the weather's so good. So yeah, noisy people on bikes. So you might hear a lot of noise in the background and I'm really sorry, but it is too hot to close these windows. So I have read 5 books over the last 2 weeks. I have a feeling I'd read more than that, but clearly I haven't. No, I lie. I've read 6 books. There's another one. I will go and get it and I'll put it with the pile. So I'm going to turn the camera around and give you a quick review over the books that I've been reading. Okay, so we'll start them in order. I started off with this one, which is what I was reading at the end of my last book review, which is called The End of Mr. Y. This one is by Scarlett Thomas, and it was amazing. Let me just give you a quick rundown. When Ariel Manto discovers a copy of The End of Mr. Y in a second-hand bookshop, she can't believe her eyes. She knows enough about its author, the eccentric Victorian scientist Thomas Loomis, to know that copies are exceedingly rare, and some say cursed. With Mr. Y under her arm, Ariel finds herself swept into a thrilling adventure of love, sex, death and time travel. Now this book is fantastic. It's about dipping into other people's thoughts. So if you imagine, and I remember thinking about this like as I was growing up, if I could just dip into someone's thoughts as I walk past them in the street and just like, what is, for a split second, what is their life like? What are they thinking about? And it could be like really mundane things like they're popping into town to go and get food for, you know, to feed the family, or they could have something really in depth going on. So this is kind of an altered reality that comes from drinking this potion. The recipe is in the book. You know, people are trying to get the book because the book is, you know, has this secret about it, has this recipe, and you know, if you take this medicine, then you will, you know, be able to enter this world of memories and minds, and it's really hard to explain. It dips into lots of scientific kind of theories. If you're into your physics and stuff like that, then this is a really good one. I mean, not ridiculously, you don't need to be a physicist to understand it, but it does dip into a lot of kind of thought experiments and physics, various things like that. So definitely worth a read. Could not recommend that more. I haven't heard anything bad about it. Lots of people who have seen me reading this have said how much they've enjoyed it when they've read it. So definitely get this book if you see it around. The next one was Eyes Like Mine. Now it does say down here that, now I got this from a charity shop, it says it's an advanced reading copy, not for sale or quotation. I'll be honest with you. Let me just read you here the little bit. It says, "It's late, the phone rings, the man on the other end says his daughter is missing. Your daughter. The baby you gave away 15 years ago. What do you do?" Now basically this woman was attacked and left for dead and then found in a ditch on the side of the road. She comes to 5 months later in hospital and is pregnant. So she gives birth and sends this child off to be raised by family who can offer her more than she feels she can. And then she goes on with her life. She becomes a private investigator. Well, she works for a private investigator and a journalist. So she kind of works for these two people and lives in their basement and doesn't have a great life, but seems reasonably happy. Anyway, this guy comes to her, says his daughter is missing, and it kind of leads her down this path of trying to find out where this girl is and what's happened to her. And it all ends up linking back to what happened to her 15 years ago. It's a bit grittier than I am used to. Lots of kind of, you know, the main character is a recovering alcoholic. She's a bit too roughy tufty. If anyone's ever watched the Jessica Jones series on Netflix, I think it is, she reminds me a little bit of a less kick-ass Jessica Jones. Anyway, we got all the way to the end and I'm thinking there's not enough pages left to finish this, and then it ends. I thought there were bits missing. I wondered maybe because this was an advanced reading copy, that meant that there wasn't the full story, but from what I've looked on the internet about advanced reading copies, actually they are complete books. So it was a bit like the author decided, so it's a bit Sheena Kamal, it was a bit like she decided, wait for this lorry to go past, tractor, it was a bit like she got bored halfway through and just went, well, we'll just end it now. So it doesn't say there's another one coming. It doesn't say it leads on to anything else. I was really disappointed, actually. Really disappointed in that one. Okay, now this one is The One Memory of Flora Banks by Emily Barr. It says, how do you know who to trust when you can't even trust yourself? Flora has amnesia. She can't remember anything day to day. The joke her friend made, the instructions her parents gave her, how old she is. Then she kisses someone she shouldn't, and the next day she remembers it. It's the first time she has remembered anything since she was 10. But the boy is gone. Okay, so it says, I look at my hands. One of them says, Flora, be brave. Now, she has messages kind of written all up her arms. One says, be brave. One has her name on. It gives her age. She just has these various notes, and she quite often makes notes on her hands so that she can remember, because she has no short-term memory after a brain tumour when she was younger. So it's very repetitive. Another booktuber, Minx Laura 123, didn't finish this book, and actually she gave a review on it just as I was starting it, and we had a quick chat, and she was like, well, you might get on with it better than I did. I can understand what she was saying. Definitely repetitive, because obviously this girl has no short-term memory, so you keep going over things as if you are her, except we have the memories that she doesn't, so it gets a little bit tedious. But as the story goes on, it does improve. If you can get past the repetitive bits, it does improve, and it does get more gritty. And there's things start to come out. You start to realise that, you know, why her brother is living in France, and why... I'm trying to think of a way of putting this without giving things away. Kind of what's really happened to her, why she has this memory loss. Lots of little things start to tie up at the end. How she's actually more capable than a lot of people give her credit for. The fear that her mum has, the trauma that her mum has, that you don't really know about at the beginning, and you start to learn about as the story goes on. So she ends up on a bit of an adventure, and meets some fantastic people, and it's definitely, if you can get past the first few chapters of the kind of the tedious bits, it's actually, I enjoyed it. I mean, not way up there 5 out of 5 type enjoyed it, but I'd give it a good 3. Okay, the next one was The Shack by W.M. Paul Young. Now this book here says, this is, oh no, where is it? Mackenzie Allen Phillips Young. Mackenzie Allen Phillips' youngest daughter, Missy, has been abducted during a family vacation, and evidence that she may have been brutally murdered is found in an abandoned shack deep in the Oregon wilderness. 4 years later, in the midst of a great sadness, Mac receives a suspicious note, apparently from God, inviting him back to the shack for a weekend. Against his better judgment, he arrives at the shack on a wintry afternoon and walks back into the darkest nightmare. What he finds there will change Mac's world forever. In a world where religion seems to grow increasingly irrelevant, the shack wrestles with the timeless question, where is God? In a world so filled with unspeakable pain. The answers Mac gets will astound you and perhaps transform you as much as it did him. You'll want everyone you know to read this book. Now, it's a good book. It is a good book. About a third of the way through, I suddenly had a better look at this book, because it felt very preachy, and I'm not overly religious. And then I looked at this bit, and he said, this book has a potential to do for our generation what John Bunyan's Pilgrim Progress did for his. It's that good. So that made me then think about who it was written by, and I believe I think it said somewhere in here that the writer grew up in a missionary family, so it probably is quite preachy, but not in the way I have had religion preached to me in the past. I went through my teens giving religion a go, Christianity, and I spent some time, so it was C of E church, and then I spent some time with a Baptist church. Some amazing, lovely people, and incredibly kind, lovely people. But I was put off, especially the C of E church, because it said that, now what did they say? At one of my Sunday school sessions, they told me that basically my parents who have their own business and had to work 7 days a week to keep the business going and to support a family of 4 children, that basically if they worked on a Sunday and they didn't attend church, then they wouldn't go to heaven, and that they needed other Christians and to attend church to basically have any kind of relationship with God. So I kind of ended up not being too pleased with that and stepped away. Then met boys. Boys became more interesting. And then in my adult life, I have met some fantastic people with a religious background, but I've also met quite a few who have been the most judgmental people I have ever met, and are very nice to you until something doesn't fit their idea, and then you're out. So I have a mixed history with religion. This book actually deals with God in the way that I believed God probably thinks of people. He's put you here to live your life, not to spend your life worshipping him and following rituals. That actually your life is here to make the best that you can and to be the best that you can. And that's kind of what I get out of this book, which is really nice because, like I said, that's certainly not kind of how God has been portrayed to me. It's the kind of God that I hoped there was. So yes, it hasn't changed my beliefs. I'm still far more into the kind of nature, Mother Earth kind of, probably more pagan twists than I am organised religion. So, but it was a good book. It was a good book if you don't mind the preachy element. Okay, this one, Kate Moss book, The Winter Ghosts. So this says, in 1928, Freddie Watson is still grieving for his brother. Lost in the Great War, driving through the foothills of the French Pyrenees, his car spins off the road in a snowstorm. Freddie takes refuge in an isolated village, and there he meets a beautiful, captivating woman. They spend the night talking of love and loss and war. But by daybreak, Fabricia has vanished, and Freddie realises he holds the key to an ancient mystery that leads him deep into the mountains, to a cave that has concealed an appalling secret for 700 years. This is slow going. I was told by someone else that it was quite slow, and that's fine. It is quite slow going. But that's fine. I don't mind a slower paced book. It wasn't slow going in the way that it was boring. It was just the story was told in a very relaxed, slow way. There was no rush. Everything was very laid back. But then I think that came with what was happening in the story as well. So I'd probably give this book a 3, 4. I enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to read another couple of her books that I've got. And then this book is the one I finished last night by Kent Haruf, Our Souls at Night. This is a very quick read, and it says here, Addie Moore and Louis Waters have been neighbours for years. Now they both live alone, their house empty of family, their quiet nights solitary. Then one evening, Addie pays Louis a visit. Their brave adventures form the beating heart of Our Souls at Night, Ken Haruf's exquisite final novel. For starters, this book has not one single speech mark in it, which actually made it quite difficult to read. So there was some lacking in punctuation, and I'm not a huge grammar, I'm not overly with the grammar. I'm not great at spelling. Don't know where everything grammatically should go, but I do know about speech marks, and I do know they make life easier. But once I got past the fact there were no speech marks, this was actually a really sweet book. It was very simply written. It wasn't too deep. It wasn't too hard going. It was an easy read. It was really just explaining their lives. This one evening, this one day, Addie turns up at Louis's house and just puts the thought to him that she's lonely at night. Her husband died years ago. His wife died a couple of years ago, and the nights are the hardest. And he agrees the nights are the hardest. And would he just come and lay with her and talk, and then, you know, that's it. It's not about sex. It's not about a relationship. It's just company. And that's how it starts. It goes through their lives, kind of through their conversations. You find out what happened to each of their partners, to her husband and his wife. Her grandson comes to stay for the summer, her 6-year-old grandson. He's having a hard time because his parents have split up. And so it talks about their support for him, you know, going back to teaching this boy some good fun that doesn't involve gadgets and tech, and, you know, sort of taking him on camping trips, all those kind of things that they did with their children. And it's really lovely. I wasn't overly keen on the end. It annoyed me. The end. I can see that actually these things do happen, and it's probably quite honest and truthful, but sometimes when I'm reading a book, I don't want the truth. I want a nice ending that, you know, well, I mean, it was a nice ending. It was fine. It wasn't the ending I was expecting. Hold on, we've got another tractor coming. This is what happens when you live in a village in the countryside. You get tractors. Okay, so yeah, these are the 6 books that I have read over the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And the book I'm about to start, I've actually left downstairs, but it's God's Behaving Badly. I can't remember who it's by, but it sounds hilarious. It's not very thick, so it's probably going to take me a couple of days to read, but I reckon once I start reading it, I'm not going to want to put it down. So that will be me this evening, sitting with that book, completely ignoring everybody else in the world, just dissolved into that. It really, I don't think I'm going to be disappointed. It sounds promising. It sounds like a really good book. Okay, so if you fancy any more of my reviews, fancy having a look at anything else I've read, then please check out my reads playlist. If you want to see more of these as they come up, then just subscribe. And if you have read any of these, or you've got any recommendations of anything I should give a go, then please do make a comment at the bottom. I love getting comments, and I will always reply. Lovely. I hope you're all enjoying the sun. Get out there and make the most of it before it's all gone.